Hi, everybody. My name is Joaquin Lopez. I'm a junior, and I want to start off my talk by asking the audience to think about. Sorry for that. Ask to think about something called object permanence. Now, object permanence, for those who don't know, is a skill we learn about 4 to 6 months of age. And what it is that things exist even when we can't see them. Which, yeah, it sounds very basic, right? But I want you to think about the implications for that for a minute. This world map demonstrates something that all exists. Everything right here exists, but it doesn't affect your current moment. Not this map, or even this map. What is the moment right now is right here. It's a photo taken from that corner. You're listening to me talk. So how do we get from here to here and all around, right? And it's simple. It's transportation. Automobiles, trains, planes, that's how we get around. And out of this, learning of object permanence and the size of the world when we grow up, another thing that we kind of get obsessed with when we're young is Hot Wheels. Toy, little toy cars, toy planes, toy trains. We love them. And some of us never really tend to grow out of it. But nonetheless, what I think is more interesting than the cars or the trains or the planes themselves is the networks that these cars, trains, and planes traverse. When we're kids, this looks like those little carpet play mats you drive your Hot Wheels on, or the little wood block train sets, you build and go around. As we grow up, this looks like the freeways of a major city, or the metro maps of a major city, right, like New York. But what these systems really define is the bounds and limits of a really critical term when it comes to transportation, and that's time-space compression. Now, time-space compression is basically, as transportation improves, as we are able to get from point A to point B faster, spaces feel a lot smaller. It takes less time to traverse these spaces. So to really highlight this, let's look at 3 stories. Right here is a photo of northern Eritrea. Merhawi, he lives in Devasia. It's a hill community, smaller village. The closest hospital is in Keren. 25 miles, that yellow line right there. In order to get there, you have to walk. That walk is 9 hours. 9 hours and 25 miles and a lot of slopes to get to the nearest hospital and get in. That's Merhawi's story. Now let's look at Anne. Anne, she lives in Berlin. She lives in a neighborhood in the southeast side of Berlin, but she has a friend all the way on the west side. This yellow line, also 25 miles. Luckily, Berlin, well connected by transportation, just like many European cities. Takes about an hour and 45 minutes to travel that 25 miles. Now let's meet Matt. Matt just bought a new home in Prosper, Texas, a suburb of Dallas, and he works in another suburb of Dallas, Addison. Now this yellow line is a lot smaller, but I guarantee you it's still 25 miles. Matt, he has to travel 23 minutes to work, maybe 30, 35 with rush hour traffic. Right, so let's compare them all. All of them are traveling 25 miles, but the reasons they travel are completely different. But how he must travel out of medical necessity. That 9-hour walking trip, that's a multi-day commitment right there. You have to want it if you need to travel that far. Likewise, and she can't commute that, she can't commute an hour and 45 minutes, but she can for sure go visit a friend, spend a day out, go run some errands along the way. So it's more doable for her, especially with public transit she can take. But for Matt, that 25 miles means nothing. Matt's able to do a daily commute, 25 miles, 20 to 30 minutes each way, perfectly fine, going down the freeway. And I think that last story, is the one we can all most relate to. That we can all travel that distance. And I think many of us in the audience, including myself, have taken that for granted, what the car means for us. And that was until the night of November 24th, 2024. Right here is a 2003 Mazda Protege 5. This was my first car. I loved it very, very dearly. Right? It just felt like me. It was bright yellow. It was, a little flamboyant, but it was just a fun car. But more than that, what it meant for me was freedom of transportation. I had the ability to choose where I could go, to choose when I could go, and go all around Jerusalem to see friends, to do opportunities, right? And that was until that night on the 24th. When I pushed the car a little too hard, and I blew up the engine. And What sucked more than just losing something you loved so dearly was the aftermath of it. This car was something I loved for sure, but it was a necessity. The aftermath resulted in me having to ask my parents, can I borrow your car? Can I arrange a ride with my friends? Plans that were originally a few texts in a group chat or a passing thought that I wanted to do, plus a 20 to 25-minute drive, all of a sudden became things I had to plan for a day in advance, 2 days in advance. Ask my parents, hey, can I use your car from this time to this time? That limited my freedom, and it just felt so weird. My opportunities in life, they didn't disappear, but they might as well have, given all of the work I had to do in order to do anything. And while, yes, everything that I went through was a consequence of my action, the conflict I had with transportation wasn't unique to me whatsoever. You have millions of people live in an environment just like the US that don't have that reliable access to a car, that don't have reliable access to public transportation, whose opportunities, they're shaped by their mobility rather than their ability. This is a very common, talking point. We're talking about infrastructure in the U.S. We need more walkable. We need more walkability. We rely too much on cars. But what does that seriously look like? I mean, this is, you familiarize yourself with these images when you think about transportation in the U.S. way more than you ever think about trains or a walkable space, right? So let's look at some examples, right? Just May 8th of this month, of this year, rather, 3 stations opened up in Los Angeles extending the D line. Which, when you think of Los Angeles, you think of freeways. You think of, driving down, an hour commute, wasting gas, right? Expensive gas. But this is a key part in a new drive from the LA Metro to, expand, to really, expand their heavy rail, their light rail. Similarly, in Seattle, they made a train float. This is a floating bridge in Seattle that connects the neighborhoods of Central Seattle and Bellevue. And they made a train go across it just earlier this year. And not only is this just an engineering marvel, it's a critical line that connects these 2 huge neighborhoods, showing that, yes, we can rely on this transportation. Even in Dallas, right here, there's the Silver Line that opened, I believe, at the end of the year last year. And it's European-style, German S-Bahn-esque trains, creating a completely suburban east-west connection in Dallas, right? And beyond transportation, just 2 hours north of here, we have the cul-de-sac in Tempe. The cul-de-sac in Tempe is this all walkable neighborhood that they've recently been working on, right? It shows that we have the ability to create these walkable communities, even in our environment, right? And I think the common counter-argument for this, for all these types of projects, is that they're expensive and they don't work. And both those counter-arguments are valid and true. Because, yeah, all of these projects are nearly in the billions to construct. All of these projects either have such a high bar for entry, like these new developments, that most people can't really reap the rewards unless you're rich to live in these neighborhoods. Or, for example, the Dallas Silver Line has 2,000 riders a day. When you compare that to the S-Bahn, the least used line in Germany, has 400,000 riders per day. And I think that discrepancy right there is the key flaw in the counter-argument. Because yes, we can say that, we can say that this infrastructure, isn't doing anything. But I like to argue the opposite, that this infrastructure is just the beginning, and that we need to continue subsidizing this. Because one line doesn't make a difference. One new neighborhood in Tempe doesn't change the precedent for the dozens of other, new developments in the Metro Phoenix area, right? It doesn't change anything by doing a single thing. It's a continued effort, a continued investment. And, through this continued effort, we can reduce these prices. We can make these systems seem like they're actually doing more. Because when you build more, you do more. Rome wasn't built in a day. And likewise, we can't take everything down or redo how we do it, our infrastructure, in a day. This continued investment is a critical component because distance isn't measured in miles, it's measured in access. So the question when we build infrastructure isn't how fast can we get somewhere, it's how do we make more places reachable for more people. Thank you.